I'm here on behalf of Timmy Bata, who is the Provincial Forest Health Coordinator in BC. He's busy spraying Surrey and Delta in the lower mainland with helicopters at low elevation with BT for gypsy moth control. It's pretty media intense, public relations intense, and so he's really busy, and I'm here to help him out. I'll just do a quick rundown of what's happening in BC or what happened in 2014. So every year we fly with a fixed wing, map the province. We grid most of it. In my neighborhood, we just fly the drainages, which is why the lines are all crooked. It's not because of our pilots. And this year, in 2014, we had a lot of fires in the north. So there's a big hole in the center of the north where we couldn't get the planes to fly and map anything, so there's no data for that area. That's Mackenzie TSA, more or less. We got 89% of the province covered. Last year previous year we did a little better. This is our history for 16 years, going back to 1999, when we had 164,000 hectares. It went up to about 10 million, and this is the annual red attack mapping with the overview flight, went to 10 million. Now we're at 2.3 million, so it hasn't exactly stopped, but it's definitely less than it was. And it's going down because in the north it's a little bit cool. In the central interior we have host depletion. There just isn't any pine left. And in the southeast where I live, it's just because we're really good at what we do. No, there are other reasons. I'm being flippant. This is a picture that you probably saw if you were here last year. This is Mackenzie in 2012, where the hole is in the map. But this is from 2012. There's an area that's now gray. This is an area that was red at the time. It'll be gray now. The pine types. Can you see it, or is it washed out? So this is what the province looks like as of 2014. I know these maps are just awful, but this is the central interior where it encompasses the Chilcotin Plateau. So the mortality here is, this is over 10 years old. It's basically what we call gray, and this is where most of the pine depletion has occurred, in these gray areas. We still have some areas of activity outside of that where we still have pine. And in the interest of brevity, I'm just going to say this area here is one of our hotter spots where we have moderate activity. In the rest of the province, of this 2.3 million that we have now, a lot of it's lower intensity, trace and light attack. So it's not as bad as it sounds, but up here it's as bad as it sounds. I'll go quickly over this. This is the young pine scenario in BC. This is a map that Tim did a couple of years ago. I didn't update it because essentially it peaked in young pine and 20 to 50 years old in about the same time, or at about the same time as the whole epidemic peaked. So the population pressures were intense. The beetles just flew into these young stands, or young, some of them are spaced. It killed them. We got up to about 260,000 hectares in 2008. 2014, we had 183 hectares. So it's basically stopped happening because the pressure's off. There's the hot spot on the Alberta border. This is the southeast where I am, and this is the only area in the province now where we're doing suppression management. That's Grand Forks, that's Nelson. We have static or declining populations as well. Suppression is, we're trying to deal with about 80% of what we find. We do detailed aerial surveys, ground surveys, and we fall and burn. It's justified because there's a perceived benefit versus cost. Canfor markets something called Canfor Red, which I thought was an unfortunate name, but Canfor Blue would even be worse. Anyway, Canfor is our biggest licensee. We use Kootenays. They have this specialty product which is clean wood, doesn't have any stain, and they're really trying to stay on top of the beetle. They really support what we do. This is a model that we use to show volume killed based on the overview survey. So they take the area of red that's found on the overview survey, turn it into cubic meters, and this is what we get. It follows the same pattern, but the blue is what's harvested, and the red is what's not harvested. So these, in theory, are loss, timber loss that's not recovered. So we're looking here at millions of cubic meters. That's the annual picture. This is the cumulative picture. This number is about 700,000, 750, and about what? 7% of it, or 10% of it, or so, or less, is recovered. There's a problem with this model, so don't take it literally, but it is guidance. There's a lot of wood that's dead that's not going to get recovered as lumber in any case. The impact, I feel like an idiot talking about impact based on the previous talk about the Grand Prairie and Alberta in the agricultural area, but basically for us, we have a lot of timber-based economies, and this impact varies on percentage of pine, history of the outbreak, the ecosystem. It's right. They do better on better site index. If we have lousy site index, we don't get a lot of attack, but the pine isn't very good. It's small. Things that the BC government's been doing, it's really, we didn't get moving very fast in 1999, but since then, the government spent quite a lot of money on economic development in the mountain pine beetle impacted areas. They have a strategy and a policy, and they put some money in different places. There are some beetle action coalitions that they're called. There are 3 in the province, 1 in the south, in the central interior, and then 1 in the north. They're coalitions of communities, regional districts, industry, First Nations, businesses, licensees, and they get together and they try to figure out ways to mitigate the impact of these timber losses on the communities in the area, because our timber-based economies, like in Quesnel and Prince George, those cities are looking at really heavy impacts based on the loss of the timber and mills shut down, people leaving. It's very difficult. We have a bioenergy strategy, policy, second strand structure, regulation. So the chief forester has said that you won't log in stands where beetles killed the mature stand, but if there's an understory that's there and it's viable, you're not going in there to salvage or anything. We're just going to leave it alone, let the pine come back, or whatever's there come back as fast as it can, and hopefully that will help. Yeah, we have a bioenergy policy. There are some tenures being developed so that it can service an industry that's developing to make pellets and other bioenergy formats. It's not done yet, but the tenure is being worked on. They spent some money on the coalitions. They've increased the inventory effort. In fact, I think they've doubled our inventory budget because we need a new inventory in BC, and now we really need one because we have to remap what's gone on in the central interior and the north. And the reality is, the mills are shutting down in Quesnel and Houston. We're at the Burns Lake sawmill, which you may recall blew up and killed a couple of people. It's being rebuilt, but the wood supply is steeply constrained. And the viability of that mill is up in the air, I think. The economy is a bit slow. There are pellet mills being built to supply European demand. They don't use the same kind of pellets as we do, of course, so it's a different product and it gets shipped out. Tighter demands on the remaining inventory. So there's a lot of dead wood, which means that what's left alive also has to do the wildlife, the water values, the recreational values, everything else. So everything is focused down and tighter. And on top of that, in the central interior, we have Douglas fir beetle and some defoliators. And in the north, we have spruce beetle outbreaks, which are threatening the midterm timber supply because that's what we have left. I've tried to do that as rapidly as possible. If you have any questions, call Tim. He's the main contact. for all of that. And I just had a couple of slides. Some of the things we're looking at in our area. I'm working with Bill Riel, the CFS, and we're looking at the efficacy of mountain pine beetle management because we have a lot of digital data now. Everything we do is GPSed, and we've got records going back to 2005, and we're looking at what effect our treatments have had. Bob Hodgkinson and I are working on using copper sulfate as an injection technique to kill mountain pine beetle and spruce beetle. Going back in the days of MSMA, which was stopped, but the copper sulfate formulation we're using is for drinking water treatments. That comes from a paper written in 1938. And we hope to have it registered in 2016. And then there's a benefit cost analysis going on with a consultant named Clay Allison, and I'm helping, and Bill Riel is helping as well.